The possibility of a nuclear war between the United States and Russia is a frightening thought. It hangs over our heads like a dark cloud. Both countries have many nuclear weapons. These weapons are capable of unimaginable destruction. The very thought of these weapons being used is terrifying. Yet, the risk is real. It's important to understand this threat. We need to know what's at stake. The consequences of such a conflict would be felt by everyone on Earth. This isn't about politics. It's about survival. It's about understanding the terrible power we have created. It's about doing everything possible to prevent a catastrophe. We must learn from history. We must remember the lessons of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nuclear weapons must never be used again. The fate of the world depends on it. For decades, the world has lived with a terrifying reality: mutual assured destruction, or MAD. This doctrine suggests that if one nuclear power attacks another, the other will retaliate with equal or greater force. This creates a stalemate. Both sides know that any attack would lead to their own destruction. This fear, this knowledge of utter annihilation, has so far prevented a nuclear war. However, MAD is a delicate balance. It relies on rationality. It assumes that both sides will always act in their own self-interest, even in the face of extreme pressure. But what happens if rationality fails? What if miscalculation or misunderstanding leads to an escalation? These are the questions that keep experts up at night. MAD has worked so far, but it's a gamble we cannot afford to lose.
Imagine a nuclear bomb exploding over a city. The blast wave would flatten buildings in an instant. A blinding flash of light would be followed by intense heat, causing fires to erupt. Thousands, perhaps millions, would perish in the blink of an eye. Major cities like Moscow, New York, and Washington, D.C. would be prime targets. These bustling centers of life, home to millions, would become landscapes of devastation. The sheer scale of destruction is difficult to comprehend. Hospitals would be overwhelmed with casualties, emergency services would be unable to cope, the lucky ones would be those who die instantly. The survivors would face a living nightmare. This is not science fiction. This is the grim reality of nuclear war. We must never allow these weapons to be used. The cost of even a single nuclear detonation is simply too high.
The immediate effects of a nuclear war are horrifying enough, but, the aftermath could be even worse. Scientists believe that multiple nuclear explosions could trigger a nuclear winter. Here's how it would work. Massive amounts of smoke and soot from burning cities would rise into the atmosphere. This thick cloud would block out the sun, causing temperatures to plummet across the globe. The consequences would be catastrophic. Crops would fail, leading to widespread famine. Water sources would freeze over. The planet would be plunged into a state of perpetual twilight. Nuclear winter is a global threat. It wouldn't be confined to the countries involved in the conflict. Every nation, every living thing would feel its effects.
Let's imagine the world after a nuclear war. The initial blasts and subsequent nuclear winter would leave behind a planet scarred beyond recognition. Survivors would face a desolate and unforgiving environment. Radiation sickness would be rampant. Food and clean water would be scarce. The very fabric of society would unravel. Governments would collapse. Economies would crumble. The interconnected world we know today would cease to exist. Humanity would be thrust back into a primitive struggle for survival. The long-term impacts are equally dire. Generations would be born with genetic defects caused by radiation exposure. The environment would take centuries, if not millennia, to recover. This is the future we must avoid at all costs. Nuclear war is not an option. We must find a way to coexist peacefully, to resolve our differences through dialogue and diplomacy. The survival of our species depends on it.